What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with some more fantasy football content. Today, I am going to be talking about who you should be taking in the first round of your drafts. Going to be going through who I would be taking, best player available throughout the whole first round, so you guys can know exactly who you should be taking in order to win your league. If you guys are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below in the comment section. I'll respond as always. If you disagree, let me know who you think should be going where, and I'll respond. Let's hop right into it. Number one, I've got Christian McCaffrey. Reason being, Christian McCaffrey's last healthy season, we saw him score over 120 points more than the second place running back in a half-point PPR league, which is how I have all these guys ranked according to half-point PPR, where I'd be taking them. I'd be taking Christian McCaffrey at the 101. If you guys would like to know any more about these players, you guys can check out, I have a fantasy profile on every single one of them. I'm just going to go briefly over who I'd be taking and a quick reason why. If you want to know more about these players, check out their fantasy profiles on my channel. Every single one of them has their individual fantasy football profile, plus plenty more. Check those out. Okay, so let's get to the 102. At the 102, I'd be taking Dalvin Cook. Cook last year in 2020 averaged 22.6 half-point PPR points per game, which was absolutely dominant. He had over 300 carries last year, over 40 receptions, utilizing both that running and passing game heavily. True workhorse to that Minnesota Vikings offense, and he's a clear 102 in my eyes, so I'm taking him there. So move on to 103. This is where it starts to get, the 103 through the 105 to me are all pretty similar, even maybe the 106. I'm taking Derrick Henry here. Reason being, over the last 2 years, he's scored 35 touchdowns. When you have a back who can score as many touchdowns as that, I'm going to try to, I'm going to believe in the outlier, even though he doesn't catch passes. He scores touchdowns in such ridiculous amounts. I'm going to believe. Last year, he averaged 20.2 points per game and a half-point PPR. I don't want to get too caught up in the 2,000 rushing yards because, like I said, he could come back to 1,500 and still be a very good back if he keeps those touchdowns. Moving on to the 104, Alvin Kamara. He finished as the RB1 last year. Some question marks about the offense now that they've lost Michael Thomas, as well as their quarterback coming in, whether it be Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston. But Alvin Kamara's had 81 receptions at least every year in his career, and has been, an efficiency dominant, scoring a touchdown, big time touchdown scorer as well. Dominant efficiency wise on the ground. He's just been so talented, and I believe he will get the ball with so few options in New Orleans, and they've got a good offensive line. I'm down with Alvin Kamara at 104. Last year averaged 22.4 fantasy points per game, and like I said, finishes the RB1 last year. Moving on, we've got Ezekiel Elliott. Elliott is coming off a disappointing year last year where he scored 13.2 fantasy points per game. He finishes RB11, but he gets back 3 All-Pro offensive linemen as well as quarterback Dak Prescott, and he averaged almost 20 points per game and half-point PPR in the first 5 games of the season when Dak was starting. I believe in Ezekiel Elliott for this season. Believe in the pass catching work. He is a guy who's going to get the ball on the ground and is going to be that third down back. Going to be do it all. True third down back in this, or 3 down back in this offense. And I think it's going to be a very good offense for fantasy football. So I'm taking him at the 105. I could even see taking him at the 103 if you don't want to go with Derrick Henry and you're worried about Kamara on the offense. I have no problem taking him at the 103. I think he's going to be dynamite for fantasy this season. Moving on to the 106, we've got Davante Adams. Adams last year scored 18 touchdowns in basically 13 and a half games. That's why I'm taking him as my first receiver off the board. He has a chance to score touchdowns like a star running back, and that's extremely valuable for fantasy. He averaged 21.5 fantasy points per game last season. Still has Aaron Rodgers back this year. Not a whole lot of competition for targets. Should just get an insane amount of targets again, especially those red zone targets, those red zone fades from Aaron Rodgers are very valuable. I'm not saying he'll score 18 touchdowns again, but he has, a better chance of any receiver to score a lot of touchdowns this year. So I'm all in a Davante Adams for my first wide receiver, taking him ahead of Kelce at the 106. At the 107, we have his teammate Packers running back Aaron Jones. Reason I have him here is the last 2 years, there's been 3 running backs that finished top 5 RBs. Aaron Jones is one of them, along with Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry. Last year, he finished as an RB5, scoring 16.8 fantasy points per game. And I think this year he's going to be utilized even more in the passing game than he was last year with the departure of Jamal Williams in free agency. Jamal Williams caught 31 passes. Aaron Jones caught 47. A.J. Dillon, the backup, who I do think will receive some work, I don't think he's going to – I think he'll, step up into that Jamal Williams role that he had, but I don't think he'll be the guy getting the pass-catching work. Jamal Williams is on 2-minute drills, stuff like that last year. This year, I think it's going to be Aaron Jones. I think his pass-catching numbers are going to go up, which raises his floor and, gives him, he could get close to that. He's always been him and Kamara have always been very similar in my mind, except for Kamara catches more passes. And but now we're going to see, Aaron Jones potentially the opportunity to get closer to those Alvin Kamara-like pass-catching numbers. Okay, at the 108, I've got Travis Kelce coming off a fantastic year last year, having over 1,400 receiving yards, over 100 receptions, and double-digit touchdowns, averaged 17.4 fantasy points per game. The reason I'm taking Kelce in the first round at the 108 ahead of guys like Tyreek Hill, his teammate, ahead of receivers like Stefon Diggs, is Stefon Diggs, who we'll talk about later, averaged 16.6 fantasy points per game and was a wide receiver 3 last year. Kelce, like I said, 17.4. I think he has an opportunity to have a similar season to he did last year with the current options in the passing game in Kansas City. I think he's going to have similar target numbers, maybe even go up a little bit. So I'm all in at Kelce, taking Kelce there. I think, he scores like a type end wide receiver, but you can play him in your tight end spot. That's a positional advantage every single week, and I'm going to take that advantage with Kelce at the 108. He finishes the tight end 5 years in a row. Very safe there. At the 109, I've got Saquon Barkley. Barkley didn't play very many games last season before he went down injured. Is currently battling an injury now, but if he can get ready, he's going to get a ton of volume this season. Even if they slow him down and phase him into the game, I still think if they're phasing him in, he's going to get 15 touches, and that's going to be enough to play in your fantasy league. That's going to be enough to get you by. And once he can get healthy, if you believe in the talent of Saquon Barkley, which he might be the most talented running back in the NFL, period. That Giants offense, there's a lot of question marks. But if he's overcome that before and posted monster seasons, it's been a little bit. But if you believe in Saquon Barkley, I believe in taking him. Once you get to the 109, I think the value becomes worth it. The more risk averse you are, though, I think the farther you push him down your board. And I have no problem with people, passing on him if that's not the style you want to go. But if he hits, you can have a chance to win your league. Tyreek Hill at the 110. Last year, Tyreek Hill scored 17 touchdowns. Was dominant for fantasy football. Doesn't get quite the target numbers that some of these other receivers do, but is extremely explosive, averaging 19 points per game last year. He's a stud, and I have no problem taking him in the first round. Next up, we got Stefon Diggs, led the league in targets last year, led the league in receptions, and led the league in receiving yards. I think we can see those touchdowns increase. Even if he doesn't, have 127 receptions like he did last season, I think the volume, though, is pretty, I don't see any reason why his volume should decrease. Averaged 16.6 fantasy points per game last season, as I said earlier, and he's locked and loaded, ready to go for me. 112, we've got Austin Ekeler, and the reason being that I have Austin Ekeler at this point in the draft, was banged up last season, missed some games, but they have one of the most improved offensive lines in all of football, adding Corey Linsley from the Packers, adding Rashawn Slater at left tackle, and having a healthy Brian Bulaga. They had one of the worst offensive lines in all of football last year. And like I said, they get all those guys back. That's going to help them out dramatically. Ekeler averaged 13.8 fantasy points per game in only 10 games last year, but that includes, the game he went down injured in. But the encouraging thing about Ekeler is he is basically on pace for similar passing production that he had the year he finished RB6 last year, maybe even a little bit more, which is like not close to 90 reception range, and if you're catching that many passes, you're going to be dynamic for fantasy football. Last time he caught that many passes, he finished as an RB6 with only 132 carries, and with all the running backs in their roster now, he's much more likely. That was when Melvin Gordon was still on the team. He's much more likely now to get closer to 200 carries. That's what he's on pace for last year. If he gets anywhere close to that, that's an Alvin Kamara type workload. Not saying that he's Alvin Kamara, but he's extremely efficient in the passing game. And, if you get 200 carries on the ground, that's going to give you enough rushing production. And then he's dynamic through the air. Even if he doesn't score a ton of touchdowns, he didn't last season, and he was still extremely productive for fantasy football. The touchdowns could come. He's in a high-powered offense with a greatly improved offensive line, especially that center position, which vastly improves the running game. I love Austin Ekeler in the late first round. If you can give him the second round, I think that's a great value. If you guys have made it to this point in the video, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button in the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. Really helps out the video, so please do all those things. Check out the fantasy profiles of these players and any other players you're interested in on the channel as well. Until next time, this is Fantasy Joe. See you guys.